What if I told you the most powerful life transformation framework ever created wasn't found in a personal growth seminar, a business mastermind, or just a best-selling book, but actually in the basement of a church through a 12-step recovery meeting? And most people think the 12 steps are only for addicts, and that was me for a long time. But what if the real addiction is to control, perfection, validation, and busyness, the silent habits that slowly disconnect us from who we really are? By the end of today's video, you're not only going to understand the 12 steps and what each of them are, but how you can actually apply them to just live a great life. Hey everyone, welcome to Real Influence. My name is Joey Vaillancourt. I'm here to help you achieve big goals without sacrificing your health, your relationships, or your joy by rewriting your scripts of success and living life in alignment with what matters most, living today. All right, before we dive in, I wanted to ask you a question. Have you ever thought about what it takes to really live a great life? That's a question that I struggled with for over 2 decades. Now, I chased success, I built businesses, I hit big goals, and I still felt like something was missing no matter how much I accomplished. So I went deep. I invested over $300,000, my hard-earned money, into events, masterminds, coaches, and mentors just to try to figure out what was going on. And what I found, it wasn't another productivity hack. It wasn't about doing more. It was really breakthrough questions and powerful frameworks to rethink the way I've been approaching life. So what I've done is I've taken the 2 decades, $300,000 of learnings, distilled them down into a 30-day challenge for you. Every single day, new question, new concept, new reflection. Go to thegreatlifeexperiment.ca to start yours today. All right, so we're going to talk about why the 12 steps aren't just for addicts. Now, I'm going to share with you vulnerably on today's episode that I've been in sobriety for the past 2 years. And I started thinking about this when I first invested in one of the biggest investments of my life. I wanted to coach with David Bayer, and I knew that I didn't want anything standing in my way. For that entire year that I was coaching with David, I said, what's standing in the way of me being successful in this program? And I did an audit, and we're going to talk about that later in the episode, about doing an audit in one of the steps, which is truly powerful, identifying what's standing in the way of your great achievement or unlocking your own great life. But I knew that drinking had started to get out of hand. I would use it to overcome things that I was struggling with. I would use it as a celebration thing. So if I was having a bad day, it was a reason to drink. If I was having a good day, it was a reason to drink, right? There was always a reason. And ultimately, I was just having wasted days because, as you know, if you drink too much, the next day is kind of a waste. And then you're kind of resetting your whole mindset every time you drank. At least it was for me. And again, this episode is not about asking you to stop drinking or encouraging you to. Although if you've been thinking about it, I can say it's been the greatest decision of my life. But it's really the power of the 12 steps that I thought it translates so well to life. No matter if you are struggling with an addiction like substance, alcohol, drugs, anything like sex addictions, that's not the point of today's video and today's podcast. We can still talk about how it did apply to me in my sobriety, but ultimately these 12 steps are some of the most powerful things you can do in your life to start to live the great life. So whether you're burnt out, stuck in old patterns, or just feeling spiritually restless, this video is going to be for you. All right, so now we're going to walk through the 12 steps. So for those of you who are brand new to this type of program, this is going to be a lot of new information. For those of you who've been practicing 12 steps for a long time, what I want to suggest is that not just to look at this from an addiction perspective in terms of alcohol or substances, etc., but we're going to reframe each of these steps to apply to life at large. So step number 1 is we admitted we were powerless over blank. For me, it was addiction, and that our lives had become unmanageable. So the reframe that I want you to think of is admitting you don't have it all together. Something is not going right in your life. We need to admit that first. The key to this is awareness and to proclaiming it. You don't have to proclaim to the world if you're not ready, but you need to be honest with yourself. And for me, I knew there were things in my life that weren't going the way I wanted them to. And yeah, there were some things in mindset and beliefs that I had to restructure, but I knew that one of the biggest pain points was that I was powerless over my addiction to going back to drinking. Again, when things were going right, when things were going wrong, and hey, it's just a Wednesday, let's have a drink to, celebrate midweek. So I had to admit to myself that I actually had a problem. And that was hard because at first you're like, oh, you find every excuse to say why you don't have a problem. And again, not just for alcohol. Think about this as your work ethic. You think that like, oh, well, everybody hustles and grinds, so I don't really have a problem. But if it's getting in the way of your happiness, if it's getting in the way of you actually moving forward in your life, there's a problem. So whatever it is, you want to just admit that we do have a problem and that we are powerless to overcoming it. All right, number 2 is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, this one I had a big issue with prior to working with David Bayer, prior to getting into addiction recovery. Because at the time, I didn't have a religion. I wasn't faith-based. I didn't believe in anything. I wasn't an atheist, but I just didn't understand the idea of a higher power, because immediately I associated to like, oh, it's that, guy with the beard in the sky. It's Catholic religion, which is what I grew up with as a child. And there was a lot of things that I didn't really believe in the religious components or the way that it was interpreted by the people that were telling the message. So this one was a really big sticking point for me. But the reframe that I had to make for myself and that I learned through going to David's events, I discovered a whole new version of what my higher power is. So one, we can define our own higher power. It doesn't have to be a Buddha, a Jesus, Allah. It can be, but it can be nature. It can be the belief in the universe. It can be the belief in the certainty of the goodness of the future, as David Bayer also talks about. And this isn't about talking about David Bayer all the time, but he's given me so many gems that I want to share, like the root of the mentor who gave me this knowledge and wisdom. So for me, I had to put my faith into something bigger than me because I knew myself, I was powerless over this addiction. I had to admit that something else was out there that I could call upon for power. And this goes to you in your life. When you're at your wit's end and you're experiencing the roadblock, the end of a chapter, you need to say that, hey, there's something greater than me, a greater strength, a greater courage is going to be immersed inside me. It's going to get me through this. So the reframe is faith in something bigger than your ego. Your ego is something that you think you need. It's something everybody has. No matter how much you do work in spiritual development, levels of consciousness, you always have the ego. The goal is to just control that ego a little bit more and know that it's not in control. So whether it's God, purpose, nature, or just the idea that you're not alone, it's just really about hope. Okay, so you don't have to fix everything yourself. All right, number 3 is made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Okay, so again, God, higher power, don't let the terms confuse you or like dismay you in terms of like, should I believe this because I don't believe in God? The point is you need to believe in a higher power. You need to believe there's something out there that's going to give you power. And maybe you've had these moments in the past where you've done something which you thought was impossible. You've got through something that was super challenging. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know where I got that strength. We can now bank on that. There's evidence in my life that some way, somehow, I got through that part of my life. And I know I wasn't alone. So now we're saying we're going to turn our will and our lives to the care of God as we understand him. So this is letting go of control. That's the reframe. Ultimately, this is surrender. It's not giving up, but giving in to what's real and aligned. So what I like to do oftentimes when I'm struggling with a big problem now, especially as I've adopted these 12 rules of life or 12 steps, however you want to call them, is anytime I'm struggling with something that I can't solve or I can't get over, I give it over to my higher power. I say, this isn't for me to hold on to. I need your strength. I need your help. I'm turning it over to you. I'm asking you for solutions. And I trust what you give me is what I'm going to need to receive. And that's been like just a lift off your shoulders. It's like getting rid of the burden, however you want to call it. But this has been super powerful for me. All right, number 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Reframe here, radical self-honesty. Okay, where are you out of alignment? What parts of you need light and not shame? So I went through like, what are all the things that I'm doing that I don't like, including, like drinking, but it wasn't just drinking because my addiction wasn't just to alcohol. It was to getting more done. It was to staying busy. It was to trying to outcompete other people. And I had so many kind of like character flaws that I had to take inventory on so I could get super honest with myself. Now, what I would say after doing the program for like 2 years is the first set of things that you're going to come across are going to be surface level. Because if this is the first time you're doing like an audit of all these moral inventories, you're going to look at those for the first time, but then in 6 months, as you work more of these steps and you get more honest with yourself, more things are going to come up. So the beauty of this whole process is that you get to continue to go through it. It's like iterating upon yourself. Who you are today and who you're going to be in a year from today is going to be severely different. But we don't want to neglect the fact that the ego might creep back in. There might be new things that are emerging from the work that you're doing. So we want to just go ahead and make that moral inventory for ourselves. All right, number 5 is admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So the reframe here, speaking the truth out loud. Secrets lose power when spoken, and this is the beginning of true freedom. I remember when I did my list, my moral inventory, I was like pretty happy with myself that I was able to go through and like identify. And I always thought that I was like a person who had a lot of self-awareness, but then to actually have to tell that to another person is a whole different level. But I would say it was one of the most freeing things that I've ever done. So part of the AA program was actually having a sponsor. So my sponsor was Thomas. He's been a great like source of just confidence in me going through the program and allowing me to speak things to him, know that I'm not being judged. So part of this is going to be finding somebody that you feel confident in sharing with. Doesn't have to be a sponsor, but I would suggest not somebody you're very, very close to. Not somebody that you're going to feel like awkward about sharing some of these things. Like maybe you're not ready to share with your wife or your husband or your partner. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be with those people. But ultimately, you do want to find somebody who's unbiased, who won't judge you, and is just willing to listen. They're not there to fix things or to tell you it's going to be okay or to do anything more than just listen. And the goal of this is really just to get used to telling the truth. So many times when we're hiding things in our life from ourselves or from others is we're not telling the truth. We're not expressing what we actually think, what we want to actually say. And we live with that. It lives within our body. It lives within our actions, our beliefs. How we manifest in our life is all affected by this. So once I did it, super freeing. And then I got used to telling the truth more. And now to the point that I'm super honest with everybody. And when I notice I'm not being honest, I realize that there's some sort of like moral inventory I need to go back and do. And that's the power of this process. Like I said, we get to rinse and repeat this again and again as we emerge into becoming even better versions of ourselves every single month, every single year. All right, number 6 is we're entirely ready to have God, our higher power, whatever you believe of the universe, remove all the character defects from ourselves. The reframe here, willingness to grow. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. Okay, so for me, after I did the moral inventory, I went through and I told someone else, which is part of step 5. Step 6 is like, hey, I'm not powerful enough to do this by myself. I need your help. Higher power, God, whatever you believe, you're throwing it over to them to help you remove these character defects. And almost every single morning and every single night, I do a prayer. And part of my prayers, and again, whether it's prayer, meditation, mindfulness, it's I ask my higher power to remove any character defects that are standing in the way of me being a person of integrity and the person that I want to become to the truest ability of my divine nature, of whatever it is I want to accomplish. Right? But I'm asking them to remove these character defects. I'm showing the willingness that I'm ready to grow and that I don't want to hold on to these things because they're not serving me, but I need help. I need it to be removed from me and I speak it out loud or I think of it internally and I just ask God, higher power, again, whatever it is that you want to believe in, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be God, religious-based, faith-based. It can be just like, hey, there's something greater than me out there that's coordinating this, that's helping me, and I've felt it, and I'm handing this over to you. These are my character defects. Remove them from me. Keep me from them. I don't want them, and I'm turning them over to you. So step 6 is really just the willingness to want to hand this over. All right, step 7 is humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So this is where, we did the inventory. Now we're asking them to release this. We're asking for help. And such a big lesson of life. For the longest time, I didn't like community. I didn't like people at large, right? I liked my family, my close friends, but I was scared of community. I was scared for asking for help because for a long time, my family didn't, recommend asking for help from other people. I still remember a lot of times whenever, let's say we broke down in a car, my dad wouldn't want to ask somebody for help who was passing by because he was ashamed that he had to ask for help. So this was a big one. And again, to have a great life, we need help. We need to ask for help. Ask and ye shall receive, right? We've all heard the quote. And it's so true though. Oftentimes we feel like I don't ask for help, it's going to show weakness. When in reality, asking for help is being vulnerable. It's showing courage. And oftentimes we're met with an answer or a solution to our problem. So number 7 is we need to ask for help. Okay, so whatever you're experiencing right now, think about, have you asked for help? Have you extended an olive branch to somebody out there? Because there's people who are experiencing the same thing that you experience. Now, this is the antidote to self-reliance burnout, okay? Now, you're not meant to do this alone. So what we're doing here, and again, reframing it to having a great life, is we need to be asking for help on a regular basis. And help is not weakness. Help is vulnerable, and asking for help is courage. All right, number 8 is made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends for them all. So the reframe here is facing relationship debt or just facing things that we've caused harm in. For me, like, again, this was all related to like quitting drinking, but it doesn't have to just be for drinking. Whenever I did my audit, I did like whenever I got drunk, I did this to this person, I did this to this person, and all the things that, I could think of in the time. And by the way, you're always going to think of more things after you get through your list. So that's why it's just such a beautiful, like, perpetual process that you never stop. But healing isn't just personal, it's interpersonal, right? So again, we're going to just make a list of all the people that we have harmed, including ourselves, guys. Like, think about it this way, right? Forgiveness to other people is super powerful, but sometimes, and most often, it's related to what we did to ourselves or that we can't forgive ourselves. I carried a lot of shame around things that I did, and I asked the other person for forgiveness in those times where I was like, hey, I harmed this person. But then I still live with the shame. I still lived with that burden on myself that I couldn't forgive myself. So ultimately, the goal here is to just start to make a list of people or things that you want to make amends for. All right, so number 9 is made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would cause injury to them or others. So the reframe is restoring integrity, making things right, not just for others, but for your own peace. And forgiveness is such a weird thing because you think it's for like the other person, but in reality, it's for both you and them. Now, whenever I went to go make my direct amends, I had to kind of apply the filter of like, okay, is this going to harm the person? Should I even talk to this person anymore? So I would say if you get scared around this one and you're not like super into like committing 100% to like following it to a T, that's okay. You don't have to. But what I would say is still do the inventory of all the harm that you've caused, all the forgivenesses that you need to make for yourself and to ask for from others. And taking it to the next step is really going and asking those people for forgiveness. I was scared to do this part because like it's super awkward. It's like, what are they going to think? It's been like 10 years since this happened. And oftentimes, one, they're just happy to hear from you. The things that you thought were super massive actually weren't. And most oftentimes I got forgiveness. And the people that I didn't approach because I didn't feel like it was appropriate or I felt like too much time had passed, it didn't even matter that I approached them or not. The fact that I could sit in prayer or meditation and go through a forgiveness practice. By the way, we've got a bunch of like videos on the YouTube channel about how to do a forgiveness practice properly, or at least one of the ways that I found super helpful at doing like over 100 forgiveness practices in my own lifespan of when I've started to actually do these type of practices. So you can check out those videos too. But ultimately, just being aware of the harm you've caused, admitting it, and then, sitting with it and going through a forgiveness practice. If it's just something you want to do internally, sometimes, you either don't have the option to do it because the person's moved on, passed away, or whatever the case is. But ultimately, it's liberating yourself. It's freeing yourself from this burden that you've carried for so long. And you might not even be able to think about it if you've never actually spent time at doing this. You might be like, well, there hasn't been that much harm. I guarantee you, if you have some sort of Achilles heel, addictive mentality, or something that's been running your life, like your ego, there's probably been people you've kind of run over. And you're holding on to that whether you know it or not. So this is a super powerful step. All right, so number 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. Reframe, real-time reflection, okay? This is maintenance. There's no more spiritual cheat days, all right? This isn't like, I'm going to do it once, and then I'm fixed, and I don't have to do it anymore, and then I've got it all again, right? We're kind of going against the grain with that type of philosophy. So what I like to do is every single day, I go through like my day in my mind, and I look back and I say, where in my life was I not congruent with what I now choose to believe and the person that I want to become? And I'll notice, I'm like, oh, you know what? I snapped at my wife when she asked me to do the dishes. I was a little short with my kids. My team brought something up that kind of made me impatient. Those are all areas that I need to improve upon. And this isn't about beating yourself up. I also celebrate the wins, right? Like, oh, I commended this person for the job well done they did. I took the kids to the park, right? But we're doing a daily reflection. and we're looking for things where we can either make amends, looking for moral inventory, character defects, things we want to let go of, things we want to give to our higher power so that we don't have to live with the burden anymore. So every single day, that's our practice now. So my encouragement to you, going back to like, we just want to make sure that we're keeping tabs on what's happening here. And the more you get into the practice of this, you're going to get through your list. You're going to be like, oh, look at that. Like nothing to solve today. Awesome. The next day, though, something could come up. And I would say the other thing that I've noticed is like, it's been a game changer with relationships, because what used to take maybe a couple months, if I was wrong, I would hold on to it. I'm like, I'm not wrong. Like they should know about this. And like, all the things my ego was telling me. Now I'm quick to forgive and I'm quick to ask for forgiveness. That's been a big game changer. Whenever I'm wrong with my wife, like if she asks me to do the dishes and I'm like, do you know how busy I am with everything else? Like as if you asked me to do the dishes and I get upset or something like that. If I notice that, like not in the moment, but like the next day, I'll go back to my wife and be like, hey, I thought about that and I didn't like the way I responded to you. Just want to say I'm sorry and it wasn't warranted. And just decreasing the amount of time you're spending. And by the way, this isn't just like for getting forgiveness from the person. It's the fact that you're living with this stuff. Whether you know it or not, like holding on to a grudge, it's a double-edged sword. It's not a good feeling to live with. So I've noticed in step 10 that I just feel a lot better. Like I am living the great life whenever I don't have to hold on to burdens. I don't have to like try to prove I was right or someone else was wrong. And I'm just able to get over things now. Like things that I used to think mattered and I had to hold on to, I just don't. So that's really the key to living a great life. So definitely step 10, love this one as well. All right, step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. The reframe, daily connections to what matters. Stillness, listening, reflection, alignment. This is where daily clarity comes from. So whether you want to pray, meditate, journal, just silently reflect. I also like to do like walking meditations, but we want to connect with our higher power. Again, doesn't have to be faith-based. You don't have to call it God, but you have to connect that there's a higher power. Okay. So we want to continue to tune into this. It's not just, I admit that there's a higher power and that it's not for me to control. And then I'm done. I don't have to go back to them. This is daily. So for me, it's really just like at nighttime, I pray. I do my reflection. Where could I have done better in my life today? What were the things, my wins? Thank you for this blessing. And also, I like to thank my higher power for all the beautiful blessings that I've seen and haven't seen. And all the things that happen to me that I understand and I don't understand, but that I have faith and that I turn it over to them. Because then I don't have to control it. It's not in my power. I don't have to worry about it. And that's been, again, a big game changer for me. But the point is, you need a daily practice at connecting back to your higher power, back to this particular practice, and continue these steps. Don't lose touch with it. Habits build, in consistency, and being disciplined with this is the most critical part. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The reframe here is just become the embodiment, become the mirror. You don't just heal for yourself, you become a lighthouse for others. And the interesting thing for me was like, for the longest time, I used to think like, I need to change this person. Right? How many times do we think like this person bugs me and, if they were just a different person, I would be fine. But oftentimes, whenever I'm noticing a character defect in someone else, it's also inside me. That's a big thing. And I'll repeat that. Everything you see in someone else that you don't like is oftentimes a reflection of something in yourself that either you recognize you're doing or not, but that's a reflection. Like you're seeing yourself in them, in that way that they're behaving. So oftentimes by healing myself, it's changing the other person. Now it's changing them in two ways. Sometimes just being a different type of person yourself will change other people around you. That could be they're actually changing, or it's just your interpretation of what they're doing. So I'll give you an example of like sometimes maybe family will get on your nerves with what they're doing, what they're saying. And you're like, oh, I just wish they wouldn't talk like that. If you do the deep work at this, all of a sudden you change, like your resonance, your energy, your perspective on the world. Then when they start to bring those things up again, I'm not triggered by them anymore. It's like, I still hear them. I'm aware of like that used to be a trigger, but I'm not like upregulated in my nervous system. I'm not getting all stressed and like angry at the same thing. I'm just noticing it going like, they're talking about that, but it's not affecting me. And I've had also instances where like people have changed just because like I'm calmer, I'm not reactive. All of a sudden they're different people. So whether that's like your team who's like, maybe letting you down or you're being impatient with them, all of a sudden, whenever I'm relaxed and I'm expecting the best of them because I can see how people can change and I believe in that now, all of a sudden I'll notice changes in them because I believe it, because I'm resonating that frequency to them. That's the interesting part of this. Now, the other part is like I've received so many amazing mentors in my life and coaches who've taught me foundational principles of how to live differently. And part of this is giving back to the community. So the first thing that everybody wants to do whenever they come across like AA or some sort of like book, it's like, oh, I got to tell everybody. Everybody has to know about this and everyone has to change. And that's kind of the wrong approach. You could take that approach, but I really want to be like the silent beacon, the silent lighthouse, the person that other people see as like, wow, they've significantly seemed to have changed. I wonder what they're doing differently. And then be willing to be a support person for that person without a judgment or a resentment if they don't take your advice right away. But ultimately, the greatest gift you can give someone else is the gift that was passed on to you initially. So all the mentors that believed in me whenever they really had no reason to believe in me or give me the time of day, I want to give that back to other people now. And I want to do it at their own pace, when they're ready, just the same way that I had my own transformation. But that's the key. In life, the more you give, the more you get back. And it's not a selfish thing to do it this way, but just know that it will come back, oftentimes in 5 or 10-fold. All right, so just to wrap up, these 12 steps are not just for AA, it's not just for addiction or substance. These are 12 steps we can apply to our life. And they've been transformational because I've walked through these steps with other people and other groups that had nothing to do with addiction, but they were transformative in the way that they started to recalibrate their own life, become versions of themselves they never thought possible because they had new awarenesses. So I encourage you to go through these 12 steps. It's not a race. It took me like 9 months to go through like the 9 steps, and I'm still working through all the way to step 12 at this point. I'm already 2 years into my sobriety journey. So again, it's not a race. And even when I'm done, I'm going back and like, hey, let's go back to number 1, because today I felt like I was in control. I'm not in control. And, number 3 or 4, whenever I'm like, oh, I gotta like, be in control of this and I gotta handle it and I gotta hold on to it. It's like, no, I don't. I have to surrender this and I have to forgive people. So it's definitely a practice you want to continue to put into your life. And it's not just a one and done thing. So if this video and podcast helped you, I would just appreciate really a lot if you could subscribe and like, share with another person too. Share with somebody who might be silently suffering in their life and they don't want to publicly acknowledge that, but maybe you have something that you can give them. And whether it's this video or just your time or your own wisdom, please do so, because we want to continue to get this message across to people who are just not living the lives of ultimate fulfillment and need realignment. So as always, thank you for watching this video, listening to this episode. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.